Exactly 1 month ago today, Pentecost came early for the church, indeed for the entire world, when Pope Leo XIV said yes to the College of Cardinals as they elected him to be the supreme bridge builder of the church. I think the Holy Spirit, especially over the last century, has given us the right Pope for the right time. Pius XII, John the 23rd, Paul VI, John Paul I, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, Francis, and now Leo XIV. I love Pope Francis, and although I didn't agree with everything he said, without Francis, there would be no Leo XIV. I was at a church event 2 weeks ago in Manhattan, and I met Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark. I never chatted with him before, but he was chatting, couldn't say much, of course, about the conclave, but he said his experience of the conclave was similar to what we hear on every Pentecost Sunday in the first reading today. He said it was like a retreat in the Sistine Chapel. I didn't want it to end, he said. It was very short, very decisive, and there was like a spiritual noise, like a strong driving wind, and everyone felt that the Holy Spirit was there in that chapel. 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, the church was born, and they began to speak in different tongues. There was this consensus of mission, and they were all astounded and amazed, as we heard in that first reading. Well, a month ago today, the Holy Spirit gave the world and the church another advocate, as we hear in the gospel today, another advocate, the most powerful soft power voice across the face of the globe. And every year on Pentecost, we commemorate the arrival of the Spirit, whose empowering presence emboldened the apostles to publicly and fearlessly proclaim the good news, thus giving birth to us, the church. In today's second reading, St. Paul tells us in this church, in this community, in this body of faith, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different forms of service, but the same Lord. There are different workings, but the same God, who produces all of them in everyone, in all of us, in different ways. Paul stresses two things in this reading from the Corinthians, which seem to be mutually exclusive: diversity and unity. Diversity and unity. You know, some people think that unity can only be achieved when diversity is suppressed. When we all think the same, when we look the same, when we act the same, when we speak the same language. But that's not the way the church was born, nor is it the reality of the church today. From the beginning, diversity and inclusion have been the hallmarks of the church. From the beginning, the church has been made up of people of every ethnicity and race and socioeconomic status with diverse ideas, rooted in different experiences, yet all, amazingly, somehow unified to some degree. 1.4 billion Catholics, through the gift of the one and the same Spirit that brings us back here again today. It is the same Spirit, not the sameness of people or uniformity in thought, that is the source of our unity. This is clear in the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, where the Holy Spirit is this power, this driving wind, this force that forges unity without abolishing diversity. The Spirit didn't transform the first apostles into carbon copies of an ideal Christian, whatever that is. Some were poor fishermen from the countryside. One was a tax collector. They were from different backgrounds, different settings. Peter was impulsive. A few of them were ambitious, others more reserved. Undoubtedly, each had different ideas about what to do next, whether to hide, go home, or stay the course. They were all different, and they remained different. What united them, what emboldened them to go out and evangelize, was this unifying sense, this unifying power of God, the Holy Spirit. The Spirit's unifying power was also at work among those to whom the apostles were sent to preach to the ends of the earth. As we heard in the first reading, the people who were present, though they came from every corner of the world, spoke in different languages, they had different cultures, different ideas, but they were able to hear the same gospel message of God's love, to come together as one people, the people of God, united in their diversity by the same Spirit. 3 weeks ago today, in his first homily on the day of his installation, Pope Leo said that his first great desire is for a united church, to act as a leaven of unity and reconciliation in our world, which he said is filled with too much discord, too many wounds caused by hatred, by violence, by prejudice, the fear of difference, and an economic paradigm that exploits the earth's resources and marginalizes the poor. Pope Leo's desire for unity reveals the reality of the church today, where intolerance of legitimate differences and overemphasis on uniformity can lead to division. So how can we as church, individually and collectively, be a leaven of unity and reconciliation in a world that desperately needs our witness? If the world is to see us as divided, though, between right and left, between red and blue, progressives and traditionalists, some attached to one ideology, some to another, well, today we must stop and ask further, what exactly unites us? In between the last Mass and this Mass, I checked out what Pope Leo said this morning in his Pentecost homily at St. Peter's, and he said that social media is, oddly enough, making people feel more not connected, but alone. Constantly connected, yet incapable of networking, he said. Immersed in a digital crowd, yet confused and solitary travelers. For believers, there should be only one answer to this call for unity. The gospel calls us, like Jesus, to offer God's love without distinction, notwithstanding our differences. This is no easy task, of course, and that's why Jesus, knowing that we would need help, left us the Spirit that brings us today. The same Spirit which was with the church from the beginning is with us now, to assist and to strengthen us to achieve that unity which does not cancel our differences. Only when we ourselves are a church united in love for one another can we be the leaven of unity and reconciliation that the world needs, of course, to move beyond war and hatred, and to try the best we can to live in peace and harmony, both in families, in the church, in the world. I saw a picture of the new Pope signing a baseball at his general audience this past Wednesday. There's a couple here at this Mass who was at that audience last week. So, as you know, he's apparently a big Chicago White Sox fan. And there's a video of him that's gone viral of him at a World Series game in 2005. Since he is a White Sox fan, then, as many people would know, that means he understands suffering and losses. But at least in 2005, 20 years ago, then he also understands miracles too, when they won the World Series. On Pentecost, we can say even world miracles are possible. And that's what we ought to pray for, especially in our very troubled world. Jesus tells us in this Pentecost gospel, I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate. In the short 50 days of this particular Easter season, on Easter Monday, we lost a great Pope, and we received a great Pope to advocate, to promote peace, to preach and peace and unity. And on Pentecost especially, I think we need to appreciate this Pope's multi-dimensional framework, not just in binary terms like American or Peruvian or Vatican City citizen, but the missionary. The missionary and now the supreme pontifex, the bridge builder, who, as the gospel says, will teach us and remind us of all that we have been told by Jesus, to be, all of us, his bridge builders of unity in the midst of our diversity in our fragile world, and sometimes even in our divided families and church. So, happy birthday. Happy birthday to us, the church. Happy birthday to all of us as we go forth and, like those mail trucks out there, as we, deliver the word from here to all whom we come in contact with. Happy birthday to us, the church.